Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Super-Fanta-Fi. This being a show where I talk about TV shows of the supernatural, fantasy, and or science fictional genre. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about episode 6 of Midnight Mass. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. First and foremost, we have Aaron, after the, at the end of the, aftermath of what happened with Riley. She has a choice to make. It's like he wanted her to run, but also knew that she would try to do whatever she could to save everyone on Crockett Island. So she does row back, and obviously she's just kind of you can see her wavering, her steps are just kind of what she experienced, what she knows to be true now. And as she's walking, she sees Sturge setting up the church, and he's waving at her. She kind of gives him a halfway because it's knowing what she knows now. And she goes to the one person she can turn to, Sarah. And she's like, I know. Oh, I sound crazy. I'm listening to myself. I think I sound crazy. And I really like what Sarah ended up explaining. She ended up talking about, essentially, there was a doctor where there was basically a hospital that was run by midwives. And then there was a hospital that was actually run by, doctors and stuff like that. But that place with the doctors and stuff had a high mortality rate. Because it turns out after... I forgot what it was. Basically, germs weren't recognized as a thing yet. No one realized germs existed. So doctors weren't washing their hands after certain things, and so it led to bacteria spreading and germs spreading, and people. That's why the high mortality rate. So a doctor was like, how about we do this crazy thing of washing our hands after every medical thing we do, and the mortality rate dropped, but people called him a weirdo and a heretic. It's just when you're on the forefront of a lot of stuff, you're going to seem crazy, especially back then. So he ended up getting locked up, and he died in there. And it's the moment, it would be 20 years later before it becomes recognized, oh, that crazy stuff he was talking about, germs and stuff. Yeah, it actually turns out it's real. So, yes. Because you can sound batshit crazy, but the fact of the matter is, it sometimes takes a while for the world to finally catch up with. You know what I mean? Any person that was actually the world is actually a spear. They were considered heretics and oh, what? You're stupid, Earl. You're an idiot. So it's that type of situation. So ultimately, Sarah believes her. She's I know you sound, but then she also shows Aaron the blood, and then also Aaron also and it was interesting how Sarah explained it too, that basically their blood is normal. The sunlight just burns the blood, and it's not when it burns, it only burns essentially the enzymes that are in there, this special enzyme that's coming from the quote unquote angel, that it's in people's blood. Their blood is normal with that sprinkled in there, but the moment that blood touches the sunlight, it burns up. And so it's kind of I keep going back to it because it's the best example I can think of. It's the Vampire Diaries, where I talked about because in that universe, vampirism is magic. And so when you remove the vampirism, your blood just goes back to normal. In that universe, when you go back to being normal, you basically, once all the magic is drained out of you, you basically died the way you died. So if you died from drowning, you start drowning. That was an example. So you died from a gunshot wound, that gunshot wound magically appears. It's that type of situation of but in this case, the light is getting rid of that particular enzyme. This is going to more it's a more science, I guess you're more science route to something that would be considered kind of supernatural, kind of magical. But but also seeing Mildred being as young as she is, now Sarah starts explaining there is a real thing about someone having an anemia and having a sensitivity to it was an EPP was the initials for it. So it's that is a real thing, but it's she's are you saying that's what this is? She's no, this is something in that family, the common cold and the bubonic plague, not the same thing, but they are in the family of kind of you would group them in the family. Granted, they are large differences. So that's what she was kind of explaining, at least it is. She's honestly, I don't know. Essentially, it's large consumptions of this will lead to you having Riley's circumstance where you burst into flames. But if you're just normal, that's why they can go out in the sun, no problem. It's you have to absorb large quantities of it. But then also the Vampire Diaries, you have to die with it in your veins before it really that they didn't realize they didn't know that was the key factor in all of it. It's not only to have it in your system. So that's also because that also kind of clarifies some of why I was why because once again they're vampiric, but they're not full-blown vampires. They can't make more technically speaking on their own, unless like, right, because everyone has like, it ends up coming up later on, but when everyone has communion in their system, this angel's blood in their blood, and they die, they'll come back. But them themselves, they can't actually make other vampires on their own. Like, it's not like, oh, the moment they bite you, it's like, no, they're just feasting on you. Like Joe never came back because, one, he never had communion in his blood, so that's why he didn't come back. But that's the thing of, like, I guess the angel must have spread, like I said, I think Father Pruitt probably was like, I need you to put blood in him, because Riley never drank communion because obviously, like, his alcoholism, like, of course he wasn't going to. So it's like, so that explains why Joe didn't immediately come back, and also, but we never saw it, but you can only assume that's why Riley came back, with that aspect to it. I guess, like, still kind of sheltering, like, not being 100% sure how it works. So I think maybe that's why they kind of hid that, maybe, like, they implanted some blood into Riley, whatever the case may be. But obviously, like, Mildred, Sarah, and, Aaron sitting around, like, they don't know all of this, but it's like, right, you get enough in your system, it changes. Like, obviously, it's like a little bit at a time, it starts reworking your body and healing it, but then given enough, it has very obvious effects, like looking at her mom. And so Aaron's like, what would it do to someone that's pregnant? And it's like, right. And it's kind of what I kind of backed down from the words because I didn't know if that would necessarily be how it was viewed. But the way Sarah's viewing it, it's like, yeah, basically a pregnancy is basically seen as a foreign invader in your body. But there are certain aspects of the human body that are conditioned to be like, no, this isn't a foreign body that needs to be attacked. In fact, like, nurture it. So like the body's natural instinct is to attack it, except like women's bodies are built to like battle that instinct, their body's natural instinct to like attack foreign things in the body. So and now it's like Aaron realizing like, wow, because sadly there's going to be some guilt on her part because she's going to be like, my baby died. I was thinking like it was Jesus that did it, but now I'm realizing like because she went to communion because of that, like once again you couldn't have known. But it's still like, I don't know if she's necessarily internalizing that as like I'm kind of at fault for my baby. I feel like Aaron could, but it could also just be like, this is Monsignor Pruitt's fault. Like he's the one that set all this in motion. He brought this to the island and stuff like that. So it's like, at the end of the day, I don't remember everything that Riley said at the end, but I do remember one thing vividly. He said to run. So she tries to go and warn Annie, like, oh, like, because she's like, oh, do you want to go to the mainland with me? And she's like, no, we've got mass tonight, the Easter Vigil. But it's like, yeah, Riley, if you see him, like, I know I'm not trying to get into his business, but tell him to come on. And she's like, he's dead. It's like, what? I'm sorry to tell you this, but Riley's dead. But his mom didn't want to hear it. It's like, always try to be there for you. And how could you say something like that? She's, I'm sorry, just like go. And she didn't want to listen. But she tried to, because at the very least, Riley wanted to make sure his family was safe when it was all said and done. Because it turns out he actually wrote them letters. And that was actually a thing Beverly was saying, like, because he doesn't know how, but because of like the connection with all the blood and stuff like that, Pruitt was like, I believe Riley's gone, because he's like, that's how he was able to feel that, Lisa was ready to walk, because like the blood kind of spoke through him and to him. And, he's actually sad because he had brought it up last episode. He actually really liked Riley because he saw him as something special. And I think in his own way he was, because once again, he made a choice that set everything in motion to try and warn people about what's going down on his island. So there's all of that. But then you also have the situation of like, Beverly being like, right, he made his choice. His choices are his own. That's the beauty of free will, but it's like, right, let's tell the church all that we know, like everything, because if we don't, like, we don't know who else, he's a Judas amongst us. Who knows who else he might have gotten to his side. So obviously the only person he got to his side was Aaron, but she was able to spread that to the others, and then Sarah and Mildred. I mean, Mildred already had her reservations about everything recently, but like this whole thing, like just now getting the information that Aaron revealed to them, it's like, right, now they have a better understanding of all that's going on. Sarah tried to warn, at the very least, she tried to like, she knows how shit crazy it'd be just to be like, oh yeah, like this. So she tried to be like, there's something in the communion, like there's some like bacteria or something that St. Patrick is spreading around. She tried to come at it from a scientific perspective because she knows from the outside, like it's like, oh, but still, like she had to give some context, but not the full crazy context. At least it's on enough of the level that it seems legitimate. So it's like, but the thing is, he didn't want to take the word of someone like Riley. But also there's other contributing factors, because it's like, right, you want me to look into St. Patrick's. It's like, do you know why I came to this island in the first place? No, it's because I never told you, right? I've never told anyone. Or more so, like, no one ever asked. So basically, he was like, when 9/11 happened, he, like most people, were shook to their core, and he wanted to help. He wanted to do good. Like, you know, that inspired, that brought the nation together. It also had its adverse effect of just like, right, what that meant for people who were from the Middle East and someone who's Muslim. Like, you look like person, like, it turned into that whole thing. And I mean, and even to this day, it's 20 years later, it's still there to some extent, you know? And I mean, and that stems across the board. But regardless, getting into this, his explanation was that basically he wanted to do right. He wanted to, you know, do some justice. So he ended up getting involved with the NYPD and ended up working up the ranks until he eventually got to like a high level position. Basically, they were convinced, like, right, like, you know, targeting anyone that was Muslim to try and get them to be their insiders of, like, right, spy on other people. It's like, right, we're getting Americans to spy on, we're getting people to, like, Americans to spy on other Americans. It's like, you know, getting people to go back to their mosque and keep an eye out and, like, right, like, let us know. It's like, you know, they were using these people because it's like, right, like, because he himself, Hassan was like a use because he could speak the language and can understand. So it's kind of like using in a effed up way. It's use the enemy to discover the enemy, you know? And so it took a while before Hassan really realized what was going on and realized the prejudice and like what was going on, and he backed away. But like, no, because what he did, he complained about it once. He didn't make too much of a buzz, but he complained about it just once, and that started getting him followed by internal affairs, because then it starts creating that paranoia amongst him. Like, wait, we put them all in these high-ranking positions so that we can use them in these high-ranking positions to find the other people scattered throughout the country that might be Muslims or who might have their ear to the ground. But then, you know, Hassan's like, but then they started getting worried. All of a sudden, we gave all these Muslim people high-ranking positions, and then it's like, then they start thinking, what if this was their plan the entire time? And that paranoia, that hate, kind of like manifesting that. And for him, like, that's why he came to this, because it's like a quiet town where nothing happens. The last, like, violence type of thing that happened in his island was centuries ago. So he thought this would be a cushy gig because he wanted to get away from all of that for his son's sake. You know, because for him, it's like, his wife had told him to kind of stand up for everything, like always handle everything with dignity. And then she got diagnosed. And then so quickly her dignity was taken from her in that regard. And so he came here to a quiet place to raise his son with dignity. And it's like, right, so you want me to cause a ruckus at St. Patrick because he's already kind of an outsider on his island. Doing that is just going to amplify things even more. I think it's also amplified by the fact is that Ali is all about going to the church now. So, but Sarah, it's like, she's like, I hope I'm wrong. But he had even made a remark about, like, right, I don't even carry a gun. She's like, you don't carry a gun? And he was like, nope. She's like, And the moment she leaves, I'm like, he actually does carry a gun. I almost expected him to kind of pull it out the drawer to reveal it, but later on we find out that he does. But then all of a sudden, the power starts getting cut in town, and you're like, wait, what the hell? It's like, right. They're isolating everyone, because earlier, Sarah, Aaron, and Mildred tried to leave. It's like, right, we're going to leave. But then, like, the boat didn't show up. I was like, oh, that's weird. And then there's Sturge over there working on their boat. I'm like, oh, yeah. It's like, yeah, we sitting in for maintenance. Most people don't take rides to the mainland in the afternoon. I'm like, oh, okay. It's like, oh, are there any fisherman boats? It's like, and then Sarah's saying, well, she's like, right. You work on all those boats, don't you? He's like, yeah, like this one, I'm maintenance, stuff like that. So it's like, right, lock them on the island. Then eventually the power goes out. There's no way off this island now. And now all they have to do is wait to cut the cellulars, the cell tower, and they're waiting because it's like, right. Hassan was already kind of like, as Wade said, he already had one eyebrow up, kind of suspicious about it. As we cut the wiring to the cell tower, it's going to look even more suspicious. So, because just when he was actually looking into, like, I guess he was going to file a missing person report for Riley. So, but then, like, all that, the power went out and everything. So it's like, okay, it's a little weird. And so before all this too, I I was scared for Ed the moment he showed up at Pruitt's, and obviously you had Stroud, Wade, Dolly, and Beverly in there, and Dolly's crying, and I was like, did they tell her everything? Because like I said before, last episode I brought it up, I didn't think she knew everything at the time. I think now she knows about, like, right, what this is all about, what the plan is. So, and Ed wants to talk to Pruitt privately. He's like, yeah, these letters. It's like, I read my letter, and then I read my wife's letter. I don't know if he got Warren's letter or not, because he didn't reference it, so he might not even gotten a letter that Warren had left. That he had left Warren, but he's like, my son seemed like he was wild, like he thought my son, he's like, my son's in trouble. And it's interesting the line he said, like, you know, whatever happened becomes of my son. He's like, I did my best. And like, that was one of the last things Riley said to Aaron last episode. I did my best, you know, and despite everything, I did my best. And he's worried about that now, but like, you know, you have it's so interesting because Pruitt did care about Riley. He's like, right, believe in the best in him. I mean, granted, the last thing you need is him worrying and asking too many questions, but it's also because you actually feel guilty. You feel sad about things playing out that way, because that's why you kind of, you know, you're like, God chose Riley, but you kind of chose Riley because you've known him since he was a little boy, like the altar boy. He, you know, that is like, you saw the good in him and what he could do for the world, about the things we can change and we cannot change. And so at the end of the day, you know, he also wrote one to Monsignor Pruitt, and it's like, oh, I'll make sure he gets it. And then when he leaves, Pruitt opens a letter, and it was basically what he has said about, you know, the sacrament, where it was kind of like, oh, like, basically from dust we will return, like basically from dust to dust, like ash to ash, dust to dust type of thing. I'm butchering it because I don't remember the exact wording, but it was basically like, to dust we will return. And Pruitt didn't like that because, you know, I mean, obviously it's like very on the nose about the circumstances of them burning in the light and becoming dust, and Pruitt didn't like that was his message. It's like he was probably hoping like Riley would have something like, oh, what do you want to say to me? And it's like, nah, it was kind of Riley's middle finger to him of like, yeah, like, I hope he burn, essentially. So or maybe it's kind of supposed to be like, right, letting you know I'm not going to go along with what you want. I'm going to go on my terms. I'm not going to go by your terms. And I think the fact is that, I mean, to be fair, because Riley took himself out of the equation before. I mean, granted, Pruitt put him in a position where he wouldn't have to worry about it, but when he was able to walk freely, he chose not to hurt anyone. He isolated himself, and I guess that's why Pruitt did what he did, like with Riley, and was going to try and do it with the whole congregation, which we'll get to later. But yeah, he was upset by all of that. But Erin decided that, you know, there's still people here that she loves. There's people here that Riley loved. So she's going to do what she can, like, to see for herself, like, how this is all going to play out. So she plans to go because Sarah, like, Mildred was like, yeah, I already told Sarah not to go back there before we learned all this. But for Erin, it's like, we have to go. So Beverly goes around collecting everyone for the church. I was looking at it, I was like, that doesn't seem like it's the entire population of the town, because I don't think it is. Because it's like 120, like, they say the population is, like, town is like 127. So, like, I think only the people who mainly come to church came there. Like, the people who've kind of been filling in, drinking the communion, which we'll get to in a second, but that's what it is. So, like, the rest of the town is, you know, up for grabs type of situation. But it's like, you know, Pruitt comes in and talks about resurrection and stuff like that. And then it starts getting a little, like, you see people kind of looking around like, I don't know about, like, some of the stuff he's saying, like, but like like the people who are in the know, like Dolly and Wade, are just kind of nodding along. Beverly's the same way. And so ultimately we see back there, it's like, right, Serge, like, come up here, and basically it's like, offer your, like, you're going to resurrect. And so we see that there's poison. I'm like, wow, do you not see how, I mean, the whole point of this is to be very cult-like, because I was like, oh, because I made a reference earlier about literally sipping the Kool-Aid and they're going to be drinking poison. It's like enough for everyone. And so it's about resurrection and everything, and he poisons Sturgis and he dies in front of everybody, and the whole congregation is freaking out. Hassan grabs Ali, like, let's get out of here. Lo and behold, who's waiting at the door? The creature. It's like, oh, look, the angel. When they looked upon his form, they were afraid. Essentially, it's like the whole thing he's going on about. And then the angel walks over and it sprays its wing and is like, yeah, you're in the presence of something. But then they see Sturgis get up and he's fine, like, oh my God. And so everyone else has their reservations, but then Ali, like Hassan's like, let's get out of here. But Ali's like, I'm choosing God. And it's like, oh, but like, once again, that's the sad thing of like, these are people which, once again, like, because he convinced his dad come to the church because it's like, right, I want you to see these miracles. These miracles might happen again because Father Paul is saying like, right, there's gonna be like a large miracle, and he wanted his dad to see that. But you know, before Ali could even do anything, Hassan pulls out the gun and threatens to shoot. It's like, do not do this. Like, I'm getting my son. And everyone crowds around him and puts him to the ground, and he watches as his son poisons himself. And it's not just him. Like, I was wondering, like, I'd say like maybe like half the congregation chugs it down. Wade and Dolly do. Obviously, Riley's parents don't. Warren doesn't. Lisa doesn't. Obviously, Sarah, Mildred, and Aaron don't. But there's other people scattered throughout. Like, you know, it's like, yeah, they don't either. And so, ultimately, you have Aaron, not Aaron, Mildred grabbing the gun, and then she shoots and then shoots Paul in the head, because I think for her it's like, right, like it needs to be stopped. You have to be stopped. And I think for her she almost felt she had to be the one to do it, because I think on multiple levels. One, she's already lived her life, and I think for her, she wanted to be the one, like, considering her history with Paul. Once again, they haven't covered it, and I don't know if they will cover it, but I do think Paul is Sarah's dad. I think that's what that is, but they still never confirmed that, so that might have been my wild theory, but I just felt that. But the angel getting pissed because it's like, right, you killed my chosen, grabs her, very Jeepers Creepers, like it just takes her off, and it's like, oh, Mildred, like he's probably taking her off somewhere and feeding off of her. But the thing is, if he kills her, she will come back as one as well. So that's the whole thing. Like, everyone else starts out, and like Beverly's like, lock the door, because like Paul is still alive. Is like, right, given enough time, you will heal. But then like the doors get locked. And then everyone proceeds to, like, the hunger starts taking over as they're all rising up, and they proceed to start killing each other. And so everyone's trapped in there. Ed, Annie, they get Warren, Lisa, Sarah, and Aaron, like, as well as Hassan, try to leave. Ed blocks him off and starts getting attacked, and he's just like, go. And in that moment, and lo and behold, as that all is happening, look who they find in a room, Beverly. It's like, oh, I thought you were all about this. Yet in that moment, you're telling, have the courage. It's like, but you're sure as shit got scared and blocked in there. And then she just, like, what? She can never admit she's wrong. That this is all her fault. She set all of this in motion. Granted, yes, it all falls on Pruitt mainly, but she was the instigator for all of this. She covered, rather than, like, she set him down as path, like, because once again, she's always been self-righteous. Like, her indignations have always been on, like, the wrong side of things, trying to, like acting holier than thou. Like, she's, like, we've always seen that, like, there was an extremist and, like, darkness to, like, her view on things. Like, it was already, like, that those seeds were there, and she's telling Aaron, like, oh, like, you go ahead, like, you have 5 minutes, and then Aaron shoots her because it's like, this is all on you, so, right, we got 5 minutes, and they run, and she rises after 5 minutes and gets back in there, and, the guy's like, Monsignor wanted the doors open so nothing like this would happen. And she's like, well, those who've drinking the commune, they're fine. Everyone beyond that, it's up to God to kind of judge them what happens. So it's like, he didn't want it to happen rapidly like that. Because I think for him, he wanted to be something of, hey, like, it has to be everyone's choice whether or not they take this. It wasn't something he was trying to force upon each other. And she's like, I love him dearly, but the fact is, like, how else is it's like, right, leave the doors wide open like the gate. How else is the gospel supposed to spread? So just like last episode, taking that. But it's like, even Paul had his reservations about things going down this way. Because I think, once again, road to hell is paved with good intention. So I think even in this moment, he realizes Beverly's kind of taking this too far. It's like, yeah, everyone in that room is most likely going to come back because they had the blood in their system, because they drunk commune on a regular basis. So it's in their system. So all of them are going to come back. But once again, like, there's still tons of people outside of the town who have not been about this, who are now on the menu, because they're not going to come back. They're going to die, so now we get into that interesting territory. Are we, like, depending on, because I think it does apply in vampire rules, Because once again, this is doing the iZombie, I mean, not iZombie, the Walking Dead thing of like, no. Oh, zombies, we don't know what those are in this continuity. It's like that. Like they're treating it like that in this world. But I guess it's also like, right, they're not necessarily like it's vampire rules, but it's also like they're like, we're not saying it is a vampire. It works like a vampire, but it's something. It's going to be something of a different name. I mean, maybe in some twisted way, it is an angel and it just represents itself like this. So maybe there's something into it. But it's like, once again, you're so sure that is an angel. At no point did you, like, you think the religious people would question, like, you believe it to be an angel, but who's to say it's not a devil? Doesn't the devil supposed to disguise himself? Like, I mean, he was an angel at one point in himself, so. But once again, I'll never speak ill just because of the show Lucifer. Like, which is so weird to say, but it's just like, yeah, but I'm just saying, like, from the religious standpoint, wouldn't you, like, kind of think, like, maybe it's not an angel I'm dealing with, maybe it's a devil, but the point I was making is, could this be a thing of, if they kill that creature, will everyone return to normal? Because all those people, they can't walk in the sun now, because the moment they walk in the sun, they burst into flames. If you didn't die and you just had the communion in your blood, like, it's fine, but eventually it would wear out of your system. So, but I wonder, like, if you kill that thing, will all that blood burn up inside of them? So, like, if you kill that thing, you save everyone on the island potentially. And they all need to be saved before the sun comes up. Because the sun comes up and they're all outside running amok. I mean, for one, you can't let this virus spread beyond this island. There's that. But also, like, if you don't, like, stop it, like, find a way to cure, everyone's going to die the moment the sun comes up. So there's going to be that angle and aspect to it. But then, because I think, like I said, I think in certain regards, like, that's how it works with vampires. Like, you have to kill Dracula specifically to kind of set that all in motion. Like, I think Dracula being killed, I mean, even like the originals kind of dabbled in that, like, right, you kill a bloodline, you kill everyone associated with it. So maybe like, kind of like that, but more so like, oh, they survive, but the blood inside of them that's corrupted by this thing dies. I know werewolf rules kind of work like that. You kill the werewolf that bit you, you cure yourself. So we'll have to wait and see. The next episode is the finale, so it's really going to be interesting to ultimately see, like, how all of this gets potentially wrapped up. And I have an inkling, just a feeling with the nature of this. This is not going to have a happy ending. Not that what, like, I don't want to use the word not satisfying, but it's going to be one of those endings that's going to be uber depressing. You're like, oh, you kind of want it there to be like, everything works out, but I'm like, I don't think it is. Either it's going to end with like, oh, we won, or at least we thought we won, and then there's going to be a little thing at the end to be like, nope, you didn't. Or it's just going to be like a uber depressing, like, nope. So I don't know. It's definitely going to be interesting to see how this all wraps up. But really, that's all I'm going to talk about. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day, and goodbye.